The stars had always promised wonder. Now they promised only death. Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Silence, and watched Earth spin slowly in the darkness below. The blue planet was beautiful. She had to admit that. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds drifting across its surface. It looked peaceful from up here. It looked fragile. Around her ship, 17,000 warships waited in perfect formation. They surrounded the human like a net of steel and fire. There was no escape. There was no hope. The humans had to know this by now. 3 years. That was how long the war had lasted. 3 years of blood and burning worlds. The Dominion had conquered 1,000 species across the galaxy. They had crushed empires that stretched across star systems. They had broken civilizations that were ancient when humanity still lived in caves. But these humans, these strange, stubborn, impossible humans, they refused to break. Remembered the day the war began. Her people had offered humanity a simple choice: join the Dominion as servants or face destruction. Every other species had chosen to serve. It was the logical choice, the safe choice, the only choice that led to survival. The humans had responded by attacking the Dominion messenger ship. At first had laughed. What could these primitive creatures do against the greatest military force in the galaxy? Their ships were slow. Their weapons were weak. They had only colonized a handful of worlds. They were nothing. But nothing kept fighting. The humans lost battle after battle. Their colonies burned. Their fleets were destroyed. Millions of them died. And still they fought. They hid in asteroid fields and launched surprise attacks. They crashed their damaged ships into Dominion vessels. They turned their own moons into weapons. They fought with a fury that made no sense. Now at last it was over. Earth's fleet was reduced to 47 ships. 47 ships against 17,000. The math was simple. The outcome was certain. "Send the final message," ordered. Her voice was cold and calm. "Tell them they have 1 day to surrender. If they do not, we will burn their world until nothing remains but ash and memory." Her communications officer bowed and transmitted the message, turned back to the window and waited. Far below, in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, the leaders of Earth gathered around a holographic display. The red dots representing enemy ships were so many that they blurred together into a solid wall of crimson. The blue dots of Earth's remaining fleet looked like dust against a hurricane. President Maria stood at the head of the table. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had led humanity through 3 years of war. She had watched billions of her people die. She had made choices that would haunt her forever. But she had not surrendered. She would never surrender. "The enemy has given us 1 day," she said. Her voice was steady. "They expect us to give up, to beg for mercy, to accept slavery." She looked around the table at the generals and admirals and leaders who had fought so hard for so long. "What is our answer?" General spoke first. He was a large man with a face and hands that had fired weapons on a dozen worlds. "We cannot win a direct battle. Our ships will be destroyed in minutes." "Then we don't fight a direct battle," replied. Admiral leaned forward. She commanded what remained of Earth's fleet. "Madam President, with respect, there is no strategy that can overcome these odds. They have us surrounded. Our weapons cannot match theirs. Our shields cannot stop their fire. We need a miracle." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. She placed it on the table. 15 years ago," she said slowly, "a ship crashed on Europa. A ship that was not from our solar system. A ship that was not. We recovered it in secret. We studied it in secret. We built something in secret." The room was silent. No one moved, no one breathed. "Its name is Prometheus," continued, "and it is humanity's last hope." She activated the chip. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. Black as the void between stars. Shaped like a blade meant to cut through the universe itself. beautiful and terrible and impossible. This ship carries technology the Dominion has never seen, explained. Weapons they cannot stop, shields they cannot break, and a cloaking system that makes it invisible to every sensor in existence. Stared at the hologram with wide eyes. Why didn't we use this before? We could have. We could have revealed our only advantage and lost it forever, interrupted. The Dominion would have learned, they would have adapted. We would have lost our single chance to change everything. She took a deep breath. That chance is now. She pressed a button on the table. Somewhere, across billions of kilometers of empty space, a signal raced toward the asteroid belt. The Prometheus is crewed by 200 volunteers, she said. Men and women who officially died years ago, who gave up their names, their families, their lives to prepare for this moment. They are humanity's last prayer. Looked at the hologram, then at, what do we do? We hold the line, answered. We fight, we die if we must. We buy time for Prometheus to arrive. Her eyes were hard as diamond. And we show the universe that humanity does not surrender. Not today, not ever. The transmission was sent. The clock began to tick. And somewhere in the darkness between worlds, a sleeping giant began to wake. The asteroid was large and dead and unremarkable. It tumbled slowly through the belt between Mars and Jupiter, just another piece of rock in a sea of millions. No one looked at it twice. No one knew what hid beneath its surface. Doctor had called this place home for 15 years. She had given up sunlight and open skis and the feeling of wind on her face. She had watched through screens as her parents grew old and died, unable to attend their funerals. She had sacrificed everything for the machine that floated in the cavern before her. The Prometheus. It did not look like a human ship. Human ships were practical things built from steel and function. This was something else, something alien, something that seemed to drink in the light around it. Its hull was black and smooth, with no visible seams or joints. It looked less like a machine and more like a living shadow. Because in a way it was. Remembered the day they found the original ship on Europa. She was young then, just a junior scientist on an ice mining mission. They had drilled into the frozen surface and found something that should not exist. A vessel from somewhere else, somewhere far away. Its crew was long dead, frozen and silent, but the ship itself was intact. The technology inside changed everything humanity knew about physics, about space, about what was possible. The governments of Earth made a choice. They kept it secret, not from fear but from wisdom. The galaxy was dangerous. They were already expanding across the stars. Humanity needed an edge, a hidden blade for the darkest hour. Now that hour had come. Captain James walked through the corridors of the Prometheus. He was 45 years old, tall and strong, with skin dark as the ship he commanded. He had been a war hero once before he died in a shuttle accident that never really happened. His wife and daughter believed he was gone. They had mourned him, moved on with their lives. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, letting them believe the lie, knowing he could never contact them, never explain, never say goodbye properly. But he had made his choice. He had chosen to become a ghost so that others could live. His crew was the same. 200 men and women who had given up their identities, their families, their very existence. Engineers who would never be thanked. Soldiers who would never be honored. Scientists who would never publish their discoveries. They were humanity's secret, its last hope. And now, after years of waiting and training, and praying this moment would never come, the signal had arrived. Stepped onto the bridge. It was small compared to normal warships, with smooth walls that glowed with soft light. There were no buttons or screens in the traditional sense. The ship responded to thought, to intention, to the neural links that connected its crew to its alien systems. His executive officer, Commander Sarah, looked up as he entered. She was no relation to the president, just another soldier who had chosen to disappear. Her face was pale but determined. "The activation code is confirmed, Captain," she said. "This is not a drill." Nodded slowly. He had hoped this day would never come. He had prayed the Dominion would leave Earth alone, or that some miracle would stop the war, but prayers were not always answered. "Status report," he ordered. "Reactor at full power. Weapons charged. Cloak is operational." Paused. "The crew is ready, sir. Scared but ready." Walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the holographic display that appeared before him. It showed Earth, surrounded by enemies. 17,000 ships against 47. His heart ached at the sight. "Open a channel to the crew," he said. A soft chime indicated the channel was open. Took a breath and spoke. "This is the captain. For 15 years we have lived in shadow. We have trained. We have prepared. We have given up our names, our families, everything we love. We did this because we believed that one day humanity would need us." He paused, letting the words sink in. "That day is here. Earth is surrounded. Our people face extinction. The enemy believes they have won. They believe humanity is broken and beaten and ready to die." His voice grew stronger. "They are wrong. They do not know about us. They do not know what we can do. They do not know that in the darkest moment humanity does not surrender. It fights. It survives. It wins." He looked at the display, at the tiny blue dot that was home. "We are the Prometheus. We carry the fire that will burn away the darkness. We are ghosts, and today we remind the galaxy why it should fear the dark." The crew responded with a roar of voices, a sound that echoed through the ship like thunder. Smiled grimly and gave the order. "Start the engines. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed." The Prometheus began to move. Its engines made no sound, produced no visible thrust. It simply accelerated, faster and faster, until the stars themselves became streaks of light. Watched from the observation deck as the asteroid fell away behind them. She had built this ship. She had poured her life into it. Now she would watch it fight. "I hope we are enough," she whispered to no one. In the darkness of space, a shadow raced toward Earth. It carried 200 souls and the hopes of an entire species. It carried weapons the enemy could not imagine and courage that could not be measured. The ghost was awake, and it was hungry. The deadline passed in silence. Admiral waited on her bridge, watching the clock count down to 0. She expected a transmission, a plea for mercy, perhaps an offer of conditional surrender. The humans had fought well, but surely they understood the mathematics of their situation. Surely they would choose survival over pride. The clock reached 0. Nothing happened. Felt a cold anger rise in her chest. She had offered them a chance. She had been merciful, and they had responded with silence, with contempt. "Very well," she said softly. "Begin the bombardment. Target their largest cities first. Let them watch their civilization burn before we end it completely." Her weapons officer nodded and began entering commands. Around the planet, thousands of Dominion ships powered up their weapons. Energy gathered in their cannons like storms waiting to break. Then the alarm started screaming. "Admiral," the sensor officer's voice cracked with something had never heard before. It took her a moment to recognize it as terror. "Unknown contact. Something is appearing directly ahead of the flagship." Spun toward the main. What she saw made no sense. Space was tearing open. It was not like normal faster-than-light travel. Dominion ships bent space, sliding through it like fish through water. This was different. This was a wound in reality itself, a black gash that bled darkness into the void. And something was coming through. The ship that emerged was unlike anything had ever seen. It was black, blacker than space itself, shaped like a blade designed to cut through the fabric of existence. It was smaller than her battleship, perhaps only 200 meters long, but the readings coming from her sensors made her blood freeze. "Energy output is impossible," her science officer whispered. "Those weapons' signatures do not match any known technology. Those shields should not exist. The black ship hung in space, silent and still, facing the entire Dominion armada alone. Then it spoke. The transmission came on all frequencies, cutting through every channel, overriding every system. A human voice filled its bridge. It was calm. It was cold. It was the voice of something that was not afraid. This is the Terran stealth carrier, Prometheus to Dominion forces. Felt her heart's beating faster. How did the humans have a ship like this? Her intelligence had shown their technology was primitive. Their weapons were weak. Their ships were slow. This should not exist. You have committed acts of war against Earth and her people. You have burned our colonies. You have killed our children. You were warned that humanity does not surrender. You were warned that we do not forgive. The voice paused. In that silence could feel 17,000 Dominion crews holding their breath. You did not listen. You should have listened. The Prometheus attacked. What happened next would be burned into memory forever. The black ship flickered. One moment it was in front of her flagship. The next moment it was somewhere else entirely. It did not fly through space. It simply ceased to exist in one place and began to exist in another. And wherever it appeared, death followed. Beams of white fire lanced out from the Prometheus. They cut through Dominion shields like the shields were not there. Battleships that had conquered worlds exploded in seconds. Cruisers broke apart like toys. Fighters simply vanished, vaporized by weapons that moved faster than light itself. The Dominion fleet began to return fire. Thousands of weapons turned toward the black ship. Energy beams and plasma bursts and kinetic rounds filled the space where the Prometheus had been. But the Prometheus was never there. It flickered again, appearing behind a formation of destroyers. It fired. The destroyers died. It flickered again, appearing above a carrier. It fired. The carrier died. Hit it, screamed. All ships concentrate fire. Her fleet obeyed. The combined firepower of hundreds of warships converged on the Prometheus. For a moment, the black ship was engulfed in light and fire and death. When the light faded, the Prometheus was untouched. Its shields glowed softly, absorbing energy that should have destroyed a small moon. No, whispered, no, this is not possible. The human voice returned and now could hear something in it. Not anger, not hatred, something worse. Satisfaction. Your weapons cannot hurt us, Admiral. Your shields cannot stop us. Your numbers mean nothing. You have spent centuries conquering the weak. You have forgotten what it means to face something strong. The Prometheus fired again. 3 more battleships died. Today you learn a lesson the galaxy has forgotten. Humanity does not break. Humanity does not bow. And when you corner us, when you threaten everything we love, we do not surrender. The black ship accelerated, moving through the Dominion fleet like a wolf through sheep. We bite back. On Earth, Admiral watched the battle through long-range sensors. Tears streamed down her face. Around her, the staff of command watched in silence as the impossible happened. 1 ship against 17,000, and the 17,000 were losing. All ships, ordered, her voice shaking with emotion. All ships, this is Admiral. The Prometheus has engaged the enemy. It is time for us to join them. Earth's 47 remaining ships powered up their engines. They were damaged. They were about to charge into the teeth of the largest armada in galactic history. None of them hesitated. Because for the first time in 3 years, humanity had hope. And hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. The Battle of Saul was being watched by trillions. Captain had made sure of that. The moment the Prometheus engaged the enemy, it had begun broadcasting on every frequency in the galaxy. Video feeds, sensor data, tactical information. Every inhabited world with a receiver could watch what was happening above Earth. For 3 years, the galaxy had watched humanity lose. They had watched human colonies burn. They had watched human fleets die. They had watched and done nothing, because the Dominion was too strong and humanity was too weak. Now they watched humanity fight back, and everything changed. On the bridge of the Prometheus stood calm at the center of chaos. His neural link fed him information faster than any screen could display. He saw the battle not with his eyes but with his mind, feeling every enemy ship, every weapon, every opportunity. "Hard shift left," he commanded. "Target that formation." The ship responded instantly. It flickered across space and appeared beside a group of Dominion cruisers. White fire erupted from its weapons. 4 ships died in less than a second. "They are adapting," Commander reported. "They are spreading out, trying to surround us with sensor nets." "Let them try," smiled grimly. "They cannot catch a ghost." The Prometheus flickered again, appearing in the middle of the enemy formation. The Dominion ships could not fire without hitting each other, but the Prometheus could fire at all of them. It did. Admiral watched her fleet die and felt something she had never experienced before: despair. Her ships outnumbered the human vessel 17,000 to 1, yet they were losing. Every tactic she tried failed. Every formation she created was destroyed. The black ship moved through her armada like death itself, untouchable and unstoppable. "Admiral," her communications officer said weakly, "we are receiving transmissions from across the Dominion." "What transmissions?" The officer swallowed. "Rebellions, Admiral. The conquered worlds are rising up." Felt the cold spread through her body. "Show me." The display changed. It showed worlds she had helped conquer, worlds that had been silent and obedient for centuries, worlds that were now burning with revolution. Though a warrior species the Dominion had beaten into submission long ago, had attacked the supply stations in their system. The peaceful creatures who had accepted slavery rather than extinction were destroying Dominion government buildings. The Quantum Collective, species that had given up hope, species that had accepted their chains. They were all fighting back. And on every world, on every screen, the same image played. The Prometheus cutting through the Dominion fleet, a single human ship defying an empire. One of the rebellion leaders, a commander named, had broadcast a message that was spreading across the galaxy. "For centuries, we believed resistance was impossible. We believed the Dominion was too strong to defeat. Today, humanity proves us wrong. If these humans can fight against such odds, if they can face destruction and refuse to break, then so can we. The age of submission is over. The age of freedom has begun." Turned off the display. Her hands were shaking. 3 years of war, 3 years of certain victory, and now, in a single day, everything was falling apart. "Admiral," her tactical officer said urgently, "the human fleet is moving." Looked at the sensor display. Earth's remaining ships, all 47 of them, were advancing. They should have stayed back. They should have hidden behind their planet and let the Prometheus fight alone. Instead, they were charging directly at the Dominion formation. They were inspired, they were fearless, they were completely insane. And that insanity was contagious. The Dominion formation began to crack. Ships on the edges started pulling back. Captains who had never retreated in their lives were ordering withdrawals. The scent of defeat was spreading through the fleet like poison. Saw the change and pressed the advantage. All weapons focus on their command ships, cut off the head. The Prometheus flickered towards flagship. For a moment, the Admiral saw the black ship filling her, close enough to touch. Admiral's voice came through her speakers. "Your fleet is breaking. Your empire is burning. You have one chance to survive this day. Order your ships to retreat. Leave this system. Never return." Stared at the black ship. She thought of her ancestors, her honor, her duty. Then she thought of her crew, her people, the thousands who would die if she continued this fight. "All ships," she said slowly, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "All ships, this is Admiral, full retreat. Fall back to the rendezvous point." The Dominion fleet, or what remained of it, began to turn. Ships that had come to destroy humanity were now fleeing from it. The greatest military force in the galaxy was running away. On Earth, the people watched the sky and wept. The enemy was leaving. The nightmare was ending. They had survived. Admiral guided her battered fleet back toward Earth. Her ship was damaged. She had lost friends today. But they had won. Against all odds, against all logic, they had won. Admiral, her communications officer said, "Captain is requesting a channel." Smiled, the first real smile she had felt in years. Put him through. His face appeared on her screen. He looked tired, he looked proud. "Admiral," he said, "Earth is secure. The enemy is retreating. We did it." Nodded, tears in her eyes. "Welcome home, Captain, welcome home." Above Earth, the Prometheus hung in space, its black hull but unbroken. It had come from shadow to save its people, and it had succeeded. But the war was not over. The Dominion still existed. The conquered world still needed help, and humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The real work was just beginning. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Saul. Admiral stood in chains before the United Terran Council. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from Earth and a dozen other worlds. Species that had once been slaves now sat as equals. Species that had feared humanity now looked at them with something new in their eyes. Respect. Had expected to die. When her fleet fled Saul, she knew her career was over. The Dominion did not accept failure. Leaders who lost battles were executed as examples, so when her own people came for her, she did not resist. But the humans had found her first. A Terran ship had intercepted her shuttle before Dominion assassins could reach her. They had brought her to Earth, not to torture, not to kill, to talk. President stood before her now, older than she had looked in the broadcasts, but with the same steel in her eyes. Admiral said, "You commanded the fleet that killed billions of our people. You burned our colonies. You tried to destroy our world." Lifted her chin. "I did my duty, as any soldier would." "Yes," agreed. "You did, and now we have a choice about what to do with you." The hall was silent. Every eye was on the human president and the fallen admiral. "Some of my people want revenge," continued. "They want you to suffer as they suffered. They want your people to burn as our colonies burned. They want war without end until the Dominion is nothing but ashes and memory." Braced herself, she understood revenge. It was what she would have done. "But that is not who we are," said softly. "That is not who we choose to be." The president stepped closer, until she was standing directly in front of. "We are going to let you go." Blinked. Of all the things she had expected, this was not one of them. "What?" "We are going to let you go," repeated. "You will return to your people, and you will deliver a message." She gestured and the guards removed chains. The admiral rubbed her wrists, confusion plain on her face. "What message?" Smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen the worst of the universe and chosen to be better anyway. "Tell your Dominion masters that Earth stands. Tell them that we have technology they cannot match. Tell them that every species they have conquered is watching. Tell them that the age of empire is ending." She paused. "And tell them this: we are coming, not to conquer, not to dominate, not to build an empire of our own. We are coming to every slave world, every oppressed people, every voice the Dominion has silenced, and we are going to give them a choice." "What choice?" asked. "Freedom," answered. "The same choice we made when your fleet surrounded our world. The choice to fight for something worth dying for. The choice to be more than what others say we can be." Stared at the human president for a long moment. She had spent her life serving the Dominion. She had believed in its power, its order, its right to rule. But standing here, in this hall full of species who should have been enemies but were instead allies, she felt something shift inside her. "You could become the new Dominion," she said quietly. With your technology, your weapons, you could rule the galaxy. Shook her head. We could, but we will not. Do you know why? Why? Because we remember what it feels like to be weak, to be afraid, to face extinction and have no one come to help us. We will never make another species feel that way. We will never become the monsters we fought against. She turned to the assembled representatives. 5 years ago, humanity stood alone. Today, we stand with and a dozen other free peoples. 5 years from now, we will stand with 100 more, not as rulers and subjects, as equals, as friends. The hall erupted in applause. Humans and aliens alike rose to their feet, cheering. The sound washed over like a wave. She was escorted from the hall and placed on a shuttle back to Dominion space. As she left Earth's atmosphere, she looked back at the blue planet that had changed everything. The Dominion would not survive this. She knew that now. Not because humanity would destroy it, but because humanity would offer something more powerful than fear. Hope. In the years that followed, the Dominion collapsed. World after world declared independence. Species after species joined the new galactic alliance that humanity helped build. There were battles still, struggles and setbacks and dark days. Freedom was never easy. But it was worth fighting for. The Prometheus was eventually retired. Its mission was complete. Its crew, who had lived as ghosts for so long, finally came home. Captain stood on a beach on Earth, feeling the sun on his face for the first time in almost 20 years. His daughter found him there. She was grown now with children of her own. She had believed he was dead for so long. Learning the truth had been painful, but standing together, watching the waves, they began to heal. The ship itself was placed in orbit around Earth, a monument for all to see. Visitors came from across the galaxy to view the vessel that had changed history. Its plaque bore a simple inscription that spoke volumes. They asked if humanity was ready to join the galaxy. We answered by saving it. And across the stars, in places that had once known only darkness and chains, beings of every shape and kind looked up at the sky and knew that they were not alone. Humanity had come, and humanity had brought freedom. The war for Earth's fate was over. The future had just begun.